This is Rob Thompson. This is Charger Career Connect. That's Will Germain over there. How you doing, Will?
Hey, how are you?
So Will is a graduate of University of New Haven and ran track. Obviously, he's one of our established alums. He got out in 2004 with a finance degree or a general business degree, but a concentration in finance.
Finance, right?
Yeah, and it's really allowed you to, that foundation for your career, and we really want to talk about that. So, welcome, Will.
Thanks for having me.
So, we got to meet in Chicago probably about a month ago, and I just, the thing when you leave sometimes with alums, I just love, the story that you told about your journey. And that's when I was like, you got to be on the podcast. No one escapes the podcast, Will. So let's talk about that journey, where you grew up. What was your transition from high school, and then into University of New Haven, and then some of the challenges that you had, along the way that really defined who you are and who you are right now.
Yeah, so I grew up in Rockland County, New York, which is county right outside the city. And obviously I ran track in high school. My parents immigrated over here from Haiti. So my siblings are kind of first generation to actually go to school in the United States, but also kind of go to college as well. So my parents were real big on education, and so that was kind of always kind of first and foremost. But they realized that I had obviously a passion for sports, and as I was kind of thinking about where to go, for school, a couple of things kind of crossed my mind. One was obviously need to be able to kind of afford the ticket, but also wanted to go to a place where I feel like I would be able to, really be able to settle in and make some sort of of an impact. So I wasn't looking to go to although I kind of looked at some very large, universities that have, several thousands of students. I kind of, got to the campus when I did my first tour and kind of, said, hey, this is kind of very manageable, for me. And it made sense, and talked to, one of the counselors. I had no clue kind of what I was going to get into in terms of, career. Um, but I always had a sense of kind of, business would be, some business was kind of something that I was always interested in. And I was kind of just learning about, the stock market, and I had no clue what, those people did, in the stock. I just kind of watched it on TV. And when I started to talk to, my counselor, and I was just asking like, hey, asking like, I was like, yes, I think I want to do business. Because, for me, I was like, hey, I want to make money. And all the people that I saw on TV that had money were business people. So, and I was like, I see these people and the stock exchange, and they're yelling and screaming. I don't know what that is, but that looks pretty interesting. And what do those people do? And my counselor, who also ended up becoming a professor, said, hey, well, that's finance. So you probably want to get into finance. And so that was kind of the kind of set me on my kind of journey and path to kind of where I was today in terms of choosing kind of what direction to go into. And so got to the university. Luckily, was on the track and field team, so that helped a little bit with the financial piece of going to the school. But really, I really had, I didn't have really any expectations per se, because I kind of first time doing this. I just knew that, I just want to make sure I get good grades, and I want to have fun while I'm doing it. So, sports, I enjoy it a lot, and being able to play sports and go to class and try to get, as best grades I can, kind of was the focus, right? And so, um, as I really started to take classes in business and, do my research and, obviously kind of get the foundations down, then I really started to kind of formulate in my head kind of what it meant to be, in finance and what sort of jobs there were that were out there and how kind of broad the career paths were within the space of finance. And so that kind of helped me start to think about, because what, there's more than just kind of being on the stock market, right? There's corporate finance, there's real estate finance, there's investment banking, there's all these things that you can do. And I basically started to meet with my counselor and learn about these things while I was at the university. And one thing that I knew was, and kind of kept hearing, is like, hey, whatever you do within finance, you know, and the way that the university structured the finance curriculum, before I took my first actual finance class, it was probably, in my third year, right? Because I didn't realize how much foundational courses I had to take before I can actually take a finance class. So, heavy accounting, heavy economics, heavy kind of business. And it really kind of solidified for me the reason why I went to finance, because finance is kind of all around business, right? You need to kind of know a lot about the numbers. You need to know how businesses operate, understand supply and demand, understand, income statements, balance sheets. And so it was kind of interesting as I was going through all of this, because I'm like, when am I going to take finance class and learn about like the M&A and all the big deals that people are doing and all of that stuff? And so not really realizing that all these, boring accounting classes that I was taking and these economics and supply and demand and all this stuff was really building the foundation so that I could actually, you know, take the first finance class and have an actual real understanding of, when businesses buy another business, how businesses, start up, what, building a capital stack and capital structure means. And so it was really, really fortunate. I kind of didn't realize it until after. I was like, well, I guess I wouldn't have never known kind of what valuation means, unless I kind of understood, accounting and understood cash flows and understood all of these things that, I was kind of doing in accounting that, I didn't really think about, I was going to need to know, when I got into my finance, career. And so, which also helped me in getting my first internship too, as well. So I got my first internship with UBS Investment Bank in Stamford, Connecticut, after my third year. And what really helped me get that was kind of the foundation that I had already built, at the university, which was really nice. So I kind of came in understanding, the parts of the balance sheet, the parts of an income statement. I had, basic knowledge of kind of, stocks, bonds. I was in the, options and exchange traded derivatives desk. And so I had kind of that background, which really made it easy for me to kind of, slide into that role as an analyst, and which also helped me in getting my, my second internship before I graduated, which was with GE Capital, which I ended up obviously going to work for them when I graduated. I was in their kind of corporate finance group, and went through a program called the Financial Management Program, where it basically was a 2-year intensive, finance program where you're changing roles every 6 months. But then even through that period of time, you're taking classes as well. So we basically work in the day, and then we come back. We have evening classes, and it basically went on for 2 years. But the nice thing about it was, a lot of the kind of introductory classes and things that we were doing, I had already a very strong foundation in, from from what I learned, at the university in both kind of accounting and business and kind of legal business and understanding contracts, how different types of entities, all of that I kind of learned, while at the basics, at the university, not knowing kind of, hey, I'm going to need to know these things, later on, later on in life. So I kind of attribute that kind of all my kind of choices and path to what I learned at the university and the foundation that I kind of built there, right? Which, then led me to, after I left, left GE, ended up going to my current company that I'm with now, to work, in the corporate finance department, which was kind of a very small department, kind of reporting to the CEO and CFO of the company. And at the time, this was in 2006 was when I came over there. But at the time, it was a, smaller firm, good sized company, publicly traded, but roughly $4 billion in total enterprise value. And I came in, fairly kind of early, as the company was starting to ramp up, and had a chance to kind of move around into different roles while I was with the company. And went from corporate finance to acquisitions, where kind of running a lot of doing a lot of underwriting, a lot of analysis. That went to asset management, where I was overseeing portfolios of multi-million dollars worth of real estate. Then went back into acquisitions to focus on originations in specific asset classes. And up to the role I am now, where I'm the senior investment officer, really kind of leading our investments in life science and research innovation, real estate, across the country. And so been there for about 15 years now. And, the company is, 30 plus billion dollars in size. I've done, over $15 billion worth of, transactions, while I've been there. Just been kind of very fortunate to have seen a whole lot, done a ton of different type of deal structures, worked on buying buildings, buying companies, selling buildings, merging businesses, joint venturing, development, acquisition. I mean, everything you can think about, I probably had done, while I've, been at the company. So, and it all really started with the university, for me. So I guess I say all that to say, for me, which is why one of the reasons why I kind of, whenever I look back at my time at the university, I'm like, hey, I feel like, listen, I've been blessed. I've been very fortunate. I have to give back, if I can and where I can. And so that kind of led me to do some of that as well. So,
you talk about, you used to watch the stockbrokers, on TV and waving around, but you took some critical steps in there. You went, once you identified that, you had in the back of your mind of, I don't know that much about it yet, but I want to go there. I want to explore that. You went to your career counselor at the university. You got an internship. You started evaluating those. You started kind of checking those boxes off of, let me get into that discovery of it. What point did you say, what point when you were in your internships, your junior years, your sophomore, junior, senior years, and when you're kind of going through it, working in those big organizations, when did you start looking at different parts of finance, whether it was venture capital, private equity, or real estate? Where were those light bulbs? When did they start going off? Like, that's the area that I want to go into. When did that happen?
Yeah, so that happened probably while I was at while I was at GE Capital. And when I worked at UBS, great company, great organization, and I got a chance to kind of interact with folks who were doing investment banking internships, folks who were doing operations, and so it was a great experience. And but I was kind of like, I want to see a little bit more because I know there's know there's more out there. And so my next internship was with GE. I did actually, and I almost forgot about this, I did do a an internship while I was a senior, kind of after my time at GE, just because I was still trying to figure what I wanted to do. And my internship at GE was um, in the fixed income group, and so basically what we were responsible for is managing the kind of investments for the pension of the company. And there were several divisions of investment divisions, and we were in our focus was investing in fixed income assets, which are mostly bonds and municipals and that sort of thing. um, that was really really interesting as well. And so while I was there, I was kind of like, hey, I just wanted more, and I just wanted to make sure I kind of tried to touch a little bit of everything. And so um, I finished my internship at GE, and over my senior year, I've got connected with somebody who was at, and I don't even think it's this name anymore, but Northeastern Utilities Company, which I think they got acquired, but I don't remember what the name is now. But it was to work in the credit risk underwriting group. And it was like, they were up in, I think, Hartford, I think is where they are off there. They were. And so it was going to be kind of a drive, but luckily it was kind of my, final semester, kind of between my final semester. So I was, able to kind of go up and do two to 3 days a week interning there, which was a completely kind of different experience, very, very interesting, because we were kind of underwriting, you know, energy deals, right? So it was kind of completely different. And so it was great experience. And, as I was kind of thinking about, all right, so what do I do? Where do I go from here? Really what resonated with me was like the financial service piece of the business. And so that's how I ended up, getting an internship with GE and in their kind of financial service, branch, which is kind of called GE Capital, which is where they, did loans, made investments, and I was there for basically 2 years. And really, it was funny because I was there for 2 years, did four different, completely different roles. And then my last role was in healthcare finance. And so that's when I learned about like this whole new industry that I even know existed called like healthcare real estate finance, right? And and I was kind of got introduced to it while I was at like, wow, this is like really interesting stuff. It's different, it's smaller than all the other areas of finance, right? And it's a subset of real estate, but it's also a subset of healthcare as well. And so I just thought it was really really interesting. And GE, great company, but a big, very large organization with a lot of hierarchy, right? Over 300,000 employees. And so for me, I was kind of like, I'd love to be able to go somewhere where I could potentially like make an impact, right? And so GE, a great company, but there's a lot of levels above me, and there are a lot of decision makers between me and the person kind of making the final decision. And I just wanted to, be in that, more entrepreneurial environment. And so that's what led me to Ventas. Is kind of they had a role that opened up, and seemed very interesting, kind of the corporate finance, you know, running, models versus based, of capital raising, M&A, a lot of the very, sexy things that people talk about in finance. And so I was like, I'd love to be able to get an opportunity to do some of that and learn some of that. And so that's what kind of led me to Ventas, and I've been there since.
Awesome. Yeah, you've had a great career, and hopefully, all the things that you learned and discovered along the way. But the last question for me would be, what is that advice? If I'm sitting there and I'm watching this and I'm 17, 18, 19 years old, and I'm
Yeah,
a parent of one of our student athletes, what advice would you have given yourself? All the things you know now, all the
yeah,
things that you went through, what is the things that you worried about that maybe you're anxious about or you wish you prepared differently for? What would that advice be?
yeah. Um, I would say probably, you know, I probably have to give maybe two or three things. I'd probably say because there's not one thing I think. So I would say number one, make sure you stay focused on your books, right? I can't tell you how many times, um, I kind of apply for, an internship or something, and there's always like people are looking for certain threshold of GPA and that sort of thing. So make sure you focus on that. The second thing I would say is like, don't be afraid to be aggressive and reach out to folks. I wish I would have done a little bit more of that. I think that if I had, I probably would have been able to potentially get, more internships a little bit earlier on in my career. I probably would have been able to get a little bit more direction from folks who were more experienced than me. And I think I would have probably been able to make I don't think I made any bad decisions, but I think it would have been easier on kind of my understanding of situations if I was able to, pick someone's brain who was more senior, find a mentor, right? Somebody you can talk to. That's kind of one thing I regret, kind of not necessarily having, you know, uh, that specific person or set of folks that I can reach out to. And I think, you know, um, the alumni network is a way to do that. And I wish I would have taken advantage of that, when I was at the university, because I talked to a lot of my, friends and colleagues, and, they kind of, knew a ton of their, alumni folks. And they're like, oh, yeah, I call this guy. He's the CEO of this company, or he's the VP of that. And, he gave me this advice and that sort of thing. And I don't think that, and I'm not sure if this is just me, but I think that that is I mean, we got a ton of talented folks that have come out of the university that are very, very successful. And I don't think that we give the alumni enough opportunity to share knowledge and pass some of that down to the students enough. And I don't think we give the students that visibility into those folks so that they can kind of reach out to those folks and get them comfortable with reaching out to those folks. So I would totally try to do that, because it's just kind of amazing the advice you can get. I didn't start doing that until after I kind of got into GE, and I started to kind of, people were like, well, you need to get a mentor, you need to talk to this person. And
True.
figured out like, hey, networking, the value of a networking, you don't really think about it when
What's
you're,
the best what's the best way for our students to reach out to you? How's that for a segue?
I mean, I'm on LinkedIn.
Yep.
You can, find me on LinkedIn and feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to start a conversation. Actually, I think some folks have reached out to me in the past, and I've had some conversations with some people. And so I'll try to make myself available as much as I can, and just don't be shy.
Don't be shy. No, no doubt about it. Great advice and great talk. Thanks for sharing your story with us. Will's also has a scholarship in his name, and someone that I know it's probably life comes full circle, and what you watch your parents, come through and immigrate to the country, and I'm sure they're just work their butts off for you and your
Yep.
family, and the heart that and the kind of person, the man that you've become, I think was probably and is the biggest gift that you've given back to them on what you've been able to do and given back to students that come through our program, that you're helping them out with their careers. So on behalf of everybody at Charger Athletics, we want to thank you for being such a hard charger, Will, and it's an honor and pleasure to have you on our show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Will over there. This is Robbie. You're watching Charger Career Connect. We'll see everybody next time. Go Chargers.
See ya.